I am here with my writer Q&A. Also have quillsandkeys.com. You guys should go check that out. Today I am here with a whole bunch of questions from you guys about writing, about my writing process. It's multi-page, guys. There's a lot of questions. I'm going to try to get to everything in as succinctly but also detailed as possible so that I can give you guys the most information about my writing process, writing in general. Also, please be sure to check out quillsandkeys.com. I will have it listed down below. There is a newsletter that goes out every single Monday. There are a ton of amazing resources, tips, tricks. I answer a lot of these questions in my weekly newsletters as well. So if you are interested in writer advice or writer tips and tricks, definitely check out that newsletter. I'm biased, but I think it's great. So you can always get some information there as well. All right, let's jump into the Q&A. I do not have on this list who all of my questions are from. It was actually on Instagram and it was a long time ago. I'm just finally getting to these. I apologize. So hopefully there's not too many things here that are like duplicates. I tried not to write down duplicates. 23 questions, so let's jump in. First one, what is harder, writing the first draft or editing? For me, it's definitely editing. I love editing. I love editing other people's works. It's very hard to edit your own work because you're close to it and you know what you want from it and you're not always seeing it objectively. And I try to step back and be able to do that. I usually write my first draft and then I let it sit for a little while and then go back and edit. But for me, the writing process is not difficult. If I know my plot, I know my characters, I usually do pretty well with the first draft. Now, is that first draft always great? No, which is why editing is always harder. What comes first for you, plot or characters? I need to have a general idea of the plot. I need to have like a beginning, a middle, and end, maybe a couple different conflicts that happen in between those different points. But if you're asking me if I know my characters or my full plot, like everything about my characters or everything about my plot before I start writing, it's definitely my characters. I love having character-driven stories. I feel like my characters and my character interactions are some of my strongest writing. But I have to, like if I'm sitting down to write, I have to have a plot to start with. And so yeah, I mean, I need to have a general plot idea that excites me. And then once I have that plot, I start putting characters into it. And I flesh out the characters first. And then I let them guide me through the plot as I write, if that makes sense. Do I have a favorite writing spot for inspiration? Yes, and it's up the mountains. You guys know that I love my house up the mountains. A place where I can shut out the rest of the world and really let my imagination go. It's where I feel like my most witchy and in tune with my creative fantasy side. I used to spend so much time up there as a kid just walking through the forest and walking through the woods, and I would take a notebook with me sometimes and write. Or I take like a little lunchbox and just like a book and go and sit out in the woods. So it's definitely where I feel my most relaxed, which definitely helps me come up with ideas and feel more creative. I don't often get the chance to write up there. I used to go up there by myself all the time and just write and read and like have me time. And then I went up there and the house had been broken into and I was terrified. I had to sleep with like a sofa shoved up against a door and an unloaded shotgun in my hand because they'd left stuff out that like they were definitely coming back for, and I was so nervous and I was by myself and it was nighttime, it was dark, and it really, really creeped me out, and it kind of took away my joy of being up there alone. So now I'm always up there with family or friends, and I feel a little bit more guilty sitting down and just writing and isolating myself when I'm up there. So I write at home. For the majority of the time I try to write at my desk so that I'm not writing in bed, so that my body knows when I get in bed it's time for sleep. So right here where I film is also my desk where I do my makeup and I write and everything. So here, you're looking at it. What has been my biggest struggle and my biggest accomplishment as a writer? I think my biggest struggle as a writer has been writer's doubt. I definitely have gotten through versions of my draft and versions of my book and just been like, this is horrible. Nobody wants to read this. This is not any good. Which I know isn't true. It's horrible. My biggest accomplishment was definitely publishing Shoot Down the Wendy Bird and having the strength and the conviction to go ahead and put it out there in the world and recognize that once it's out there, it's no longer really mine and everybody can infer from it or take from it what they need and make it their own. And It's scary, it's terrifying, it still freaks me out every time somebody says that they bought my book and they're reading it, because I worry that they're not going to like it, or that it doesn't transfer, or maybe it's not relatable to them. I think just being brave enough to share your work is a huge accomplishment. I'm also really, really proud of the fact that I've written over 300,000 words, but it's been of the same damn book. So I'm proud that I stepped back and realized that the first draft wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I started over again, and I'm a lot happier with what I have now. So I guess all of that. There's a lot of highs and lots of lows when you're writing. Where do I get inspiration? This one is weird for me because a lot of people, like when I talk to Amber, I talk about Amber a lot when I'm talking about writing because she's been my longest term writing buddy. She has a ton of ideas in her head. She always has something in the background that she wants to write about next. I am a super monogamous writer, and this story has been in my head for 7 years, and it won't leave. And I know that it's not over. Like, book 1 is not the end of it, so all I'm thinking about is book 2. I'm not thinking beyond this series to like other characters or other worlds or other stories. So this inspiration came from a lot of the books that I was reading back then. I was reading a lot about fae, I was reading a lot about witches, I was reading some urban fantasy. It's kind of a mashup of all those things, and then characters that I wanted to see and relationships that I wanted to see and struggles that I wanted to see. And it's definitely evolved as time has passed. But my inspiration just kind of came from other books that I was reading that inspired me to then do my own take on it. So that. What's your method for planning, plot, and characters? Do you use mind maps? My first time around doing this story, I had notebooks. A lot of notebooks. And I had a notebook for each character, and I had a notebook for plot, and I had a notebook for research. So I had like 5 different notebooks. One for each of the main characters, one for plot, one for research, maybe setting or something else. So I had like 5 notebooks, and I would just kind of switch back and forth. I would research, I would paste in pictures of like inspiration of what I thought the characters looked like or the setting looked like. And then I realized it wasn't really like the most realistic or usable thing in the world. So then I started using Scrivener. I plot everything in Scrivener now. I have character maps. Just started to use that for setting, for characters, for plot. I really use a notebook still as I like map things out. Yeah, I don't use any like predetermined like map. I just kind of do what feels right for me. And then 7 is our time of the day where I am most inspired. And yes, I tend to do the bulk of my work and the best of my work from like 8 p.m. to 10 to 11 p.m. And that 3-hour block in the evening, I find myself most creative. Now with my current work schedule being able to be home between like 9:30 and 12:30 to 1, I can also find ways to be productive during that time frame. So I used to think my sweet spot was like 8 to 11, and I'm learning that my sweet spot is whenever I sit down and dedicate myself to it, but I would still probably say night owl as opposed to morning. Top 3 paranormal creatures or things to write about. Fae, witches, and I haven't really written about anything else. Like spritish, impish, fae-like creatures, but that might not be like classified as fae. I like the idea of familiars or animals that have connections with humans or fae. I would say like more mystical, magical things. 9, what keeps you motivated? Here's the thing. I have people ask me all the time, how do I stay motivated? What can they do to stay motivated? Motivation has never been a problem for me. I hate to not be doing something. That doesn't mean I can't sit still. I can sit still and read. I can lay in bed and do nothing all day long. It looks like nothing, but I'm reading or I'm brainstorming or something like that. But I can't watch TV. I can't watch movies. I can't do something that I deem mindless. The motivation is very simple. I come home, I eat, I shower, I sit down and I work. There's no 2 ways about it. Unless I'm exhausted and I come home in the middle of the day now in my break to nap, I'm working. And by working, it could be reading, but that's a part of what I consider fuel for my channel. I'm always doing something. I don't know how to not be doing something. I'm not saying that's a healthy thing. In fact, I'm saying it's probably not a healthy thing. Motivation for me, not a factor. Now, I will procrastinate and want to read instead of editing or read instead of writing or the other way around because I'm just not feeling one. And then I just remind myself that I'm never going to get past a hump or past this feeling unless I push through it. It's easy for me. It's what I love to do, so I don't ever struggle just sitting down to do it. What genre is my book? My book is a new adult, so college-aged urban fantasy. It's doing really good. Tips for pushing through writing anxiety. Oh man, if I knew that. Anxiety is going to find you and doubt is going to find you, and you have to realize that you're never going to feel better about your work unless you just sit down and keep working on it and hone it. Anxiety is the worst, and I have really, really great writing friends that I lean on, and I'm just like, I think this is garbage and nobody's going to care about this, and it's really, really bad. What am I doing with myself? And then I step back and I realize, like, it's not that bad. It may not be perfect right now, but it's not that bad, and it's workable, and I'm making it better every pass. You just have to remember that the more you work and the more that you write and the more that you edit, the better you get at it and the better your work will be, and that everybody starts somewhere, and that if this isn't the story that gets you published or that you self-publish or that you deem like worthy, it's great experience. Everything is a learning experience when you're a writer, and being gentle with yourself and kind with yourself and reminding yourself that this doesn't have to be the perfect pass. It doesn't have to be the perfect book. It just needs to be your best at this moment, and then you can work to make it better. But you need to write it. You need to have something to show progress. So just keep pushing forward and you'll be amazed what you can do by the end of it all. 12 was any themes, ideas, or dynamics that you feel compelled to write about. Always fae. Always witches, always magical or mystical. I feel like as a child, that's what I kind of always wished for, that I would have magic. And this was way before Harry Potter, that I would have magic. I kind of always wished for imaginary friends, but I never had any. I had 3 sisters. I didn't need imaginary friends, but I always kind of wished that I could make one up. And I used to like sit and think about them and who they would be, and then like wait for them to find me, and they never did. So I think at some point I'll probably do an imaginary friend story, but just the magic in the world, the little small things that we take for granted that are really so magical always inspire me to go forward and go further. I feel like I probably will always write some type of fantasy or magical realism, just whimsy inspired story. I think I have hard-hitting contemporaries and cry-worthy things inside of me. For sure, Shoot Down the Wendy Bird proved that. I've got a dark mind, and as much as I try to write fun, lighthearted things, it always ends up a little bit dark, too, just because it's where my mind takes me. 13 is, do you think it's important to write what you know, or can you write without personal experience? Writing fantasy, I don't have personal experience with a lot of this stuff, but I have creative freedom to make that up. I think if you're writing contemporary, or if you're writing something that's supposed to be realistic, do your research, make sure you know what you're writing, make sure that what you're writing is not like problematic, maybe get sensitivity readers. I think you can write anything you damn well please. The story that's inside of you does not need to be edited because somebody else feels like it needs to be. By all means, go and write it. I think it can be really freeing and really cool to write about things that you don't have experience with. I think that it's a way to live out a life that maybe you took one road and you can write a story about the other road and kind of live vicariously through your writing and maybe not feel the regret of missing out on that said road. I think that there's a lot to be said for therapeutic writing about things that you didn't experience yourself but wish that you had. Write whatever your heart calls you to write. Ever just jot down an idea and forget it and feel like you misplaced something important? I've had thoughts about my book in the middle of the night where I'm like, oh, I should write that. Oh, this character should definitely do this. And then I don't write it down and it's lost and it's gone. And then yes, it drives me crazy for hours trying to remember what it was that I thought I wanted to say or do in my book. But I don't get ideas for other stories. Like I said, I'm a super monogamous writer, so I'm really good about having voice memos or notes open on my phone and notebooks around me at all times so that I can jot things down. But there's nothing worse than having a great idea and not taking the time to do that and then losing it. It will haunt you. It will haunt you. So just write it down, open a voice memo, open a note, and get it down. 15 is, what is your writing kryptonite and how do you work through it? Again, it's writer's doubt, and it's, you know, something that I've already talked about. Either writer's doubt or procrastination, and then I just remind myself that this isn't going to write itself and that I'm the only one that can write this particular story and it's time to just get to work. I don't usually have to push myself to write because, again, it's just something that I I want to be doing. I already covered that one, I think. 16 is, will I seek traditional publishing or self-publish? I am going to query. I am going to try to get traditionally published. And as I said before in my update video, which I will link in a card up above, I don't know what this process looks like for me because I have never queried before, and I don't know how long I'm going to query before I decide to self-publish. I'm going to wait and see if I get any feedback from queries or anything like that and see how I feel about the process. I personally don't mind self-publishing. I love the control it gives me over covers and pricing and all of that. So yeah, I don't know how long I'm going to query or how long I'm going to try to traditionally publish, but I have no problem at some point calling it quits and just self-publishing. So we'll see how that goes. 17, if you have multiple ideas, how do you pick which to write? I don't, and I have no clue how that even works because my brain is so singularly focused. I've got nothing for you on this one. I would say whichever one your heart is called to or you feel compelled to write. Next question is plot or pants or plants? I used to be a hardcore plotter. I plotted everything, and now I definitely plants. I have a combo of both. I know my characters, I know the plot, but then I kind of let them go and get themselves from one point to the next. I'm now a plantser. Do I have a method for plotting my novels? No. Nope. Like I said, I used to have all those notebooks. That didn't really work anymore. Then I moved stuff into Scrivener, and what I basically do is I have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I have a couple different conflict or character growth points that I know I want to hit in the beginning half and the end half. And then in between that, I just kind of let my characters roam and see what kind of comes. But I do always have a beginning, middle, end, and then like 3 or 4 different things that happen in between each of those spots that kind of move the story forward and the character growth forward. What gives you motivation to keep writing after that you've reread some of your work and it sucks? It is not easy acknowledging that what you wrote sucked, but you can only get better, and the more you write, the better you get. It actually isn't a horrible thing. I think it's beneficial to look back and realize it sucked because that means you can go forward and make it better. Realizing that it sucks is so not the worst thing that could happen. Trying to put it out there and it's still sucking, that's the worst thing that could happen. If you look back at it, you realize that it sucks, then you know you can make it better. And then moving forward should be actually kind of exciting because you can go forward and fix everything that you did that you don't think works, and you've got this second chance at something that you are passionate about. And it's actually a really great place to be. So just look at it from a place of power and you can move forward and it'll be great. Number 22 is my favorite part of the writing journey, that first draft, man. Being excited to just get those words out and to explore the characters and the world through your words, to create something completely unique in your own. I absolutely love the actual writing process. It is the most satisfying and amazing thing that I've ever done, and it's just amazing. That's the best part, when it's still yours and you haven't shared it yet. You're not getting like horrible feedback, but you just know that you've created something and it might be imperfect, but it's yours and you did it. That's gonna be it for this video. It's already really long. My raw footage is super long, so I apologize if this is a crazy long video, but I love having all of these tips and my advice and my thoughts all in one place. So hopefully this is something that you guys can use as a reference. I'm sure I will be linking it in a newsletter soon. So if you haven't already checked out Quills and Keys, which is my freelance editing service, you can do that down below. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter down below as well. Now that's everything. If you have any other questions, be sure to leave them in a comment down below. I will add them to a list for the next time I do one of these. And in the meantime, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and I will see all of you in my next one. Bye guys.